All right, welcome to our coffee and compliance webinar for this month. Super excited. We've got Jordan Kenworthy from Amazon chatting with us, as some of you have heard from her before, either at our summits or on these coffee and compliance. So really appreciate you being here today, Jordan.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Cool. And I guess to kick things off, you've worked in a bunch of different industries. You're at Amazon now in an environmental role. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background, what industries you've worked in the environmental sector, up to this point? What got you to this current state?
Yeah, that's right. I have been in a lot of industries and a lot of environmental roles in the industry. So I started out in a bulk transloading and shipping via rail, barge, truck, ship, vessel industry. So a lot of the farmer type things, and then moved to corn milling production. We produced ethanol as well as used any of the byproduct things and made lots of random stuff with that. Then moved into building products, which included mining and, went and audited some lumber mills, things to that effect. And then on to consumer products, where we made things that were used in everyday life. And now, kind of closing the loop, I'm on the retail warehousing side of getting all of those products to people. So it's kind of the closed loop process. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I guess we'll get to it a little bit later, but any cool insights from on the environmental side that you've been able to translate from industry to industry along the way?
Yeah, the thing is, ultimately it's all the same. All the environmental rules and regulations across the industry, across the states, it's all the same book, just different pages. So once you understand that the ultimate goal is all stemming from the same thing, CFR, and then you've got your individual state rules. So once you realize that it's all relatively the same, but there's specific items, like for mining has specific things that they have to follow. So there's different little um, areas that you really have to focus on depending on where you're in, but it's all stemming from the same area. So once you realize that same book, different page, it's a lot easier to kind of have your head on your shoulders and say, "Oh, I understand this. I know where to find this. I know where to go get this." It's not as foreign as you would think it would be.
Yeah, that's an interesting tidbit that you mentioned about knowing where to find it. I mean, I guess as you've moved through industries and in your career, how much has that been a key skill of just knowing how to go find things in the regulations, not so much that you have every single regulation memorized or how to respond to it.
Yeah.
Googling for regulatory information, I think, is a key skill in EHS.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's things that I've come across. You've got the similar things like tier twos, for example, that time of the year. It's same thing across the board. Some companies have more strict rules on what they report, but otherwise it's the same scenario for every state. There's a few little differences, but it's all the same thing that you're looking at. And so once you know where to find that, it's a lot quicker to get to. And then once you understand, okay, you've got the 40 CFR, you know where this is, you know where the waste battery regulations are, that, certain states have their rules and you know where to go look that up. Um, it makes it so much faster. And the other side of it is, like you said, knowing what to Google. Um, it like it's not easy to Google some of the environmental regulations. You can still get lost down a rabbit hole and not know where the heck you are. But once you figure out where to go and what to do, and also you've got the people in your life that also make it easier. I've got people from past roles that, we're friends, and I terrorize them quite often and ask them if there's something that, hey, where the heck is this rule? Or if I'm thinking about something and I'm like, I know they can't do this, but I may not have the 5 minutes it takes to look it up, I need an answer right now, I can bounce it off those people. So you've got those, that group of people that you kind of gather and scoop up along the way in your career, that they're good sounding boards. And it's, everyone needs those people. We can't do this by ourselves. I mean, we can, it's just a very long, hard road that is not as fun. And so you've got a lot of the like-minded people that you meet along the way, and you use them as a sounding board and try and figure out, hey, what is this, or what works best for this role or this scenario. So that's one of the biggest helps also, is knowing where to look, and then having specific people that you can ask uh, questions
Uh,
from their experience too.
yeah, the two skills no one ever gets taught in school of like how to Google and like how to build a network. So when stuff
Yes.
goes sideways or you're scrambling and need an answer, it's like pick up the phone, somebody else will point me in the right direction. So
Yeah. 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 I'm not, I mean, I'm on my phone. I've always got my phone, but it's not easy to Google regulations on your phone. So it's,
yeah.
you've got this group of people that they're a text or a phone call away of, hey, where the heck do I find this? And it makes your life that much easier. And it makes you more efficient in being able to do other things when, you use that lifeline every now and then. And I'm not saying call them all the time because they will eventually block your number.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, it's a great part of your network to have.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's fun on both sides. Like when people call you for questions, it's a lot of fun. It's like, yes, I've dealt with that before. I
Yeah.
get to score 1 point.
I made it. Someone called me for something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the sign in the career progression. If somebody calls you for
Yes.
something, you're like, yes.
Finally.
Yeah. At your current role at Amazon, what can you tell us about your current role? What's your favorite part of the job? Is there anything you can share on your current role?
Yeah, so regional environmental engineer for Amazon. My favorite part is the people part. And I say that I got two favorite parts. So the one is the people part. I love being able to go to the sites, meet the people, build that relationship, and help them succeed at environmental compliance at their site for whatever that looks like. I'm very much a people person, and I enjoy meeting all different kinds of people and seeing all the different things that go on. And this is with any job. I'm the person that will ask all the questions of, well, why does that work, and how, and what do we do? And so getting to see all the different things is really neat. And then the other side of it is, I love doing it's kind of complete opposite of the people part. I love doing the background stuff. Um, a lot of what we do as environmental professionals is in the background. And there's still a lot of people who don't know what we do. Like, I tell someone I'm a regional environmental engineer, and I think if I'd have said I was an astronaut, that would have made more sense and they would have understood that more.
Yeah.
Because people just don't, they're like, well, what do you do? I I know you said environmental, but I don't know what that means. And so one of the easiest ways I found to explain to people is, so say, hey, I work for Amazon. If you don't see Amazon on front page paper, that means I'm doing my job. And it was same for Cargill and Georgia Pacific. If you don't see my facility on the front page, that means I'm doing my job. So the goal is, you'll never know what I do, because there's so much background work that goes into environmental compliance that a lot of times you hope doesn't see the light of day, because that means it's running like a well-oiled machine, and you're doing the compliance stuff. You're getting it done and kind of rocking and rolling. So those are two of the things that I really enjoy, is the people side, and then kind of, no, I don't want to say sneaking around in the background because that makes environmental compliance sound shady. But doing the background things of like, here, this is what we do, or this is, what this looks like. This is what this needs to progress like for us to be in compliance or make compliance that much stronger, going above and beyond. So that's what I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. And yeah, every day that a company is not in the front page news for environmental is a win, in
Right?
terms of the compliance side.
Yes.
I think the balance of like having really high levels of curiosity in whatever industry you're working in makes you have to have that to have the other part work, because you have to
Yeah.
understand all the like nuances and like the process and where are all the failure points in that industry, so you can make
Yeah.
the other side behind the scenes just like happen magically.
Yeah. Yeah. You can just make it better.
Yeah. Have there been any like core environmental skills beyond doing all the back end, being curious, learning how to Google, having a network, like um, any other skills that you've like carried from industry or job to job that you think is really core for the environmental space?
So, yes and no. I mean, so organization. I wasn't always good at organization, but it was a skill that I was passionate about and I nurtured and I got better at it. And it's something that I am super organized now in a way that works for me and that helps me um, do my job better because I do have that organization and kind of the time management that goes with organization. Um, but with that being said, just because I'm good at that and I have my guidebook of this works for me, it may not work for everybody, and that's okay. And what I say for that is read someone else's guidebook. So look at my organization skills, but that doesn't mean you have to do it exactly. Take what I've learned and what works for me and make it work for you. So take my guidebook, but don't follow it to a T. Make your own guidebook and grow from there. And part of that is being parts of team projects and group projects, going to visit sites, seeing what other people do in other industries, and even it doesn't have to be environmental. Environmental is so much associated with safety that we can't 100% separate because we do a lot of the core things that we are mildly tied together. But also grab someone from quality, grab someone from ops, and look at how they handle a specific task or scenario that could be related to something that you do, and see what works for them and how you can make that work for you, because that will, one, it will help you build that skill and help you write your guidebook for what works for you, but it'll also help you to think outside the box, because so many times we are focused on how do we meet this regulation? How do we go above and beyond for this regulation? And we're so hyper focused on the nitty gritty details that we don't take a step back and look at the big picture of, safety has their regulations that they follow, quality has regulations, everyone has these regulations that they follow, and we all do it. Some are similar that we follow the regulations as far as the mannerisms and processes we do, but some are wildly different. And taking the time to look at something that is so different from what you're used to can help you widen your scope and just build those extra tools into your guidebook as to what helps you do better at your job. So that's what I would say is my best 2 cents to take and run with.
So be organized and just keep learning from other departments, other folks. Yeah.
Always learning, always looking at what works for you, what works for them, because if it's something as an environmental support that I need someone else to do, just because it works for me doesn't mean it works for them.
Yeah.
So they may have a different way to do it, and that's okay because we're still in compliance. We're still meeting our goal. It just looks a little different. So sometimes you got to throw that guidebook to the side and follow along with what works best for each site. And ultimately, we're all meeting the goals.
Yeah. Yeah. How much does that impact like your environmental compliance is often dependent on non-environmental people to meet the goals.
Yes.
Like you operate on with influence, not so much mandate or direction of like you shall do it this way every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you get other people to be, non-environmental people to be successful in the compliance requirements? What are any tips, tricks you can share from working across industries? Because this is a huge topic for folks of like, how do I
Yeah.
influence operations? I need them
Hmm.
to do this, but their number one job is to make something in production and operate equipment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So a couple of tips and tricks I've learned along the way is you've got to build that trust. And we can talk about that all day long, and it's much easier said than done. But one of the ways that I've learned in building that trust is don't try and talk above anybody. We're environmental. We can quote regulations that can bore people to sleep all day long. And those people don't live in that verbiage. They don't speak in regulations or technical terms. And so when you are working with the ops person, you know, there's no sense in using those 25-cent words or even dollar words if that is such a thing. I would probably stumble over them tremendously. But you got to know your audience, and you've got to speak with them in a way that they understand, because what I've learned is people don't want to ask questions. And whether it's for fear of looking silly, or they may not fully understand, but they don't want you to know that they don't understand. And so they're just like, yeah, okay, and they walk off. And then you've lost them. So having those just like down to earth conversations of, hey, this pH needs to be between 6 and 9, and this is how we keep it in this area, and this is what makes it go high, this is what makes it go low, this is our ground where we live. And just having that conversation, building that rapport and that trust with them, and just letting them know you're there when they ask questions. If they shoot you an instant message with, hey, this may be a dumb question, I always come back and I'm like, no, that's a good question. And it's not a dumb question. If you don't know it, it's not a dumb question. I would much rather you ask every day than spend 2 hours trying to figure out something when you could have asked me and I could ask someone else, or either I maybe know the answer. But so that's one of the ways. Additionally, you know, slight bribery via cupcakes and cookies and chocolates and candies is never a bad plan. That is generally a fail-safe. For example, when I was in Iowa, it was the corn mill, and we were going through startup and construction. So it was a cold, wintry, hot mess. And I would get called in on a Saturday, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming in. We'll figure it out. We'll look at it. And I would bring donuts or cookies. And it got to a point I was like, are y'all just calling me because you didn't have breakfast this morning and you wanted some cupcakes or donuts or something? But it was that I built that great relationship with them to where when they had a question, whether it was a solidified question, like solid answer, whatever, they came to me. And then when I was in an office with Georgia Pacific, I had a candy bowl on my desk with little chocolates in it, and people they can't resist, and so they'd walk in my office and reach in to grab a piece of candy, and I'm, hey, while you're here, let's talk about this waste treatment system, or let's talk about some housekeeping issues, and what we can do to fix that. And you've got their attention with the candy, and then you can bring up whatever questions or issues that they may other avoid you in the hallway about. But that's building that trust, and then sweetening it with a little bit of candy is a great start.
Yeah, I bet. So while you're enjoying your chocolate, I've got some questions on our annual SPCC form. If we could go
Yeah,
through 1 through 10 while you're enjoying that
yeah.
chocolate bar,
While
we
you're
just like knock
and they're
those
stuffing their mouth with chocolate so they can't yell at you until they're done. So
together.
it's like a win-win. You're like, oh, you already ate it. Like, here's some questions.
Yep, yep. Has that anything like big incidents that trust really paid off on, where they might have just ignored it or not called you? Like anything that you can think of through your career where it was like because you had laid that groundwork with trust for the non-environmental folks that like shit went sideways and you're like they called you right away and like, hey, I have this problem. Yeah, anything you can share on that?
Yeah, so with one of my past jobs, I was actually away from the facility at an internal meeting, and I'd gotten a call, and one of the engineers on the other side was like, "Hey, all our sulfuric acid tank is leaking." It was, new to us facility, so there was no telling what bugs or gaps or anything that we had in the meantime. So, but the callway said, "Hey, we identify that this was leaking. We don't know how long it was leaking. Um, I don't know what to do." I was like, "Okay, so let's figure it out. Where is it leaking? How much? What's your first rough estimate? Because sulfuric acid, we know we got to call that in. That's not just it's clean water going to the ground. It's fine." So I'm like, "Give me your worst estimate. Worst case scenario, what is it? We'll call it in. And then we'll work on figuring out exactly how much, where it went, what that looks like." And that was one of those things. I mean, they called me right off the bat instead of what I feel like typically would have happened would have been like after the fact, after they figured out, okay, it was this much that leaked and this is where it is. But they called right off the bat. So we called it in. And, when you tell the National Response Center that your worst case scenario is 70,000 pounds of sulfuric acid, you have to kind of peel them off the ceiling and talk them off the ledge that, listen, you want worst case, this is what you got. I'm gonna call you back. So just hold that thought. And we went through, and it ended up being much less than that, thankfully. And it actually it worked out very well that it was all the much smaller amount was all contained right there under the tank, where the line was. So we were able to call the National Response Center back and say, "Listen, we gave you a worst case scenario. So now that you think your head has exploded from that number, I'm gonna bring it back, and this is what it actually was. It was a much smaller amount that they were much more comfortable with." And then on top of that, we told them that we were able to have everything cleaned up and taken care of. So it was a best case scenario in the end. But that's one of the things where um, you build that relationship and they call you and you're able to have that conversation. And no one wants to make that call. No one wants to call and be like, "Hey, by the way, I know you're not here, but there's a chance we could be doing this." So it was a great that was one of the best parts of like building that relationship and making sure that you've got the trust of your coworkers.
Yeah. Yeah, because oftentimes you hear if you don't have that trust, it's, oh, we kind of cleaned it, we threw some dirt on it, it'll be fine.
Yeah,
It's like,
just cover it up.
when was that? Oh, last week you were out, you weren't at the facility, we weren't sure what to do, so we just threw some
Yeah,
dirt on it and like
yeah,
called it
which is
good.
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
I mean, because yeah, like the same reason people don't ask questions because they don't want to look silly or don't fully understand. It's the same thing. Like, I don't want to bug Jordan. She's not at the facility. I'll just, make it go away, the problem.
yeah. Yep. That's exactly it. So
Cool. Well, final question for this morning. Compliance, often viewed as outsiders, but as boring, not much fun. What's the inside secret, or what's the funnest part of the industry that you can share?
um I think So one of the funnest part, like it's funny. So like a couple weeks ago, I was working on an Excel sheet because I'm a nerd through and through, and I was able to Google efficiently how to write some code in Excel, and I got it to do what I was thinking in my head, and I felt like the smartest person in the world, and I was able to do some stuff that I didn't like. I didn't learn that in school. I'm not a computer science person, so I was very excited. To me, that's the funnest part. But fear not, I'm always quickly humbled by my gracefulness, and I usually trip over something after that. So that's the fun part. I think to me the inside secret I think is the compliance side is knowing how much effort your company is putting forth into being being the best company. And when I say that meaning doing what we can to make the world a better place. The news never shows stuff like that. The news doesn't want to show good things about companies do or what they do. So I think the best inside secret is knowing how much effort is put forth into that. I mean, I've worked in industries that we feed the world. We fuel cars, we feed livestock, we put a roof over your head. We have, made consumer products that you touch every day. And then now we're delivering those products that you touch every day. And I think that's what makes me the most proud of all the companies and industries is just knowing what goes into making the world a better place, be it going above and beyond the regulations and honestly really caring. And do we always succeed? No. But will we try again tomorrow? Yeah, every day. And to me, that's the best inside secret is how much effort is put forth into making the world a better place.
Yeah, and it's I think tied to the economy aspects of it too. Like you get to support all the kind of foundational businesses that you said make things that we touch every day, and we get to
Hmm.
protect the environment. And a lot of us, I know you are, and a lot of us are outdoors people, so it's cool to have both
Yes.
both sides of it and get paid to do
Oh,
it, which is awesome.
yeah. 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 So I think that's my one of my favorite parts of it. So
Cool. Well, we're almost out of time. Really appreciate it, Jordan. It was great catching up and joining Coffee and Compliance. So thank you for joining us today. Appreciate
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
it. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.